Pablo, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? JP, good evening. Miles and CMF, good to see you as well. JP, how you doing, brother? How you doing? How you been? Mike, good to see you as well, brother. How you doing? Comatose, good to see you as well. How you doing? Hey, everyone. You had a good day, Miles. Today, good day. Today was a very busy day, I would have to say. Also, barely any sleep, I would have to say also, too. Hi, Miles. T, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Hello, Miles and CMF. Scott, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Good evening, Miles and family. Susie, good to see you as well. How you doing, Susie? How you been? Artistic, good to see you as well. How you doing? What's up, Miles? What's up, CMF? Kerry, good to see you as well. How you doing? Okay. By the time everyone tunes in, let's do the intro disclaimer and we'll essentially get to the first part of the news, and everyone should be tuned in by then. Welcome to the CMF Live. If you're watching this for the first time ever, the CMF stands for Crypto Miles Family. My name is Miles. You can tune to this live Monday to Friday, 10 p.m. London time onwards, for the most recent news regarding cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, AI, politics, regulations, pretty much vital information for you to know about regarding the world completely transforming into a digital space. We also do Q&As on this live as well, which means if you do have any questions, put it down in the comment section. More than happy to help you out. And the disclaimer of this live, as always, is not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. And this is episode 354 of the CMF Live. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the market space in general, essentially what's still pushing it up. Are we heading into that starting of essentially an actual alt season happening? We're going to talk about some perspective news on tonight's live as well. We're going to talk about the Fed rate cuts once again, because we just had new perspectives coming in from the Fed today as well. We're going to talk about some essentially Google banning situations that are going on that are related to the blockchain space and wallets, which is an interesting one. We're going to go through some essentially crypto companies that are doing tremendously well right now on Wall Street. It's not just that crypto in general is doing good on the essentially crypto exchanges. It's also that crypto companies, blockchain companies, are doing tremendously well, and that Wall Street is supporting both sides of this matter. And we're also going to be talking about tonight's live regarding essentially Ethereum news, new perspective news, where the market's going to be headed, and obviously, as always, the Ripple news on tonight's live as well. Now, the first news we are going to be covering on tonight's live is regarding in general about the market space right now. So before we go through that news, let's go to the comment section first, and then we go straight into the first news. And I also just want to take a second to say thank you so much to everybody right now who's watching from the CMF, who has already liked and retweeted this live if you're watching us on X. And thank you so much to everybody on YouTube who's watching right now, who's also liked the live as well. If you haven't done that, CMF members, please like and please retweet if you're watching us on X. And if you're watching this on YouTube, just drop a like. Now, let's go to the comment section first before we do go through essentially the first part of the news. Let's see where we're at. We were at here. Good evening, Miles and CMF. Orphan, good to see you as well. How you doing? Good evening, Miles. Funky brother, good to see you as well. How you doing? Good evening, Miles and the CMF. How you doing? I'm doing great, Carlos. Good to see you as well. How you doing? Good evening, CMF. Funky brother, let's go. How are you today, Miles? I'm doing great, Lena. Good to see you as well. Scott, let's go. How you doing, brother? Good evening, Miles and CMF. Manny, good to see you as well. How you doing? Miles, BTC and ETH are pumping. What's happening with the altcoins? We're going to go through that's the first part of the live, essentially. XRP is not really moving fast enough. I know. Share the live. Let's go, Scott. What's your predictions for when this bull run is going to take off full speed? This bull run will take off full speed essentially once we get that rate cut happening, or essentially 30th of September, we get a Clarity Act in place, gives more confidence towards the market space. What about the ETFs likely to get approved? Are the ETFs essentially likely to get approved? Yes, very high. According to Bloomberg themselves, essentially James and Eric, the top range of analysts from Bloomberg, have put their guesses at 80 to 90% chance of an XRP ETF happening first before anything else. According to also essentially James, it's about 95% chance XRP ETF is next to get approved. Makes a lot of sense because the SEC knows the ins and outs of XRP, and now that essentially yesterday I shared on the slide that it seems like the SEC is actually helping Ripple now rather than scrutinizing them from what was released yesterday. XRP ETFs are pretty much also on the way, as what I would have to say. Holy Spirit, oh, I don't know what this. Okay, hi Miles and CMF. George, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Good evening, Miles. Hope you're well. Addy, good to see you. How you doing? Good evening, Miles. Michael, good to see you. How you doing? How you doing today? I'm doing great. Michael, how you doing? Good evening, Miles. How are you doing? I'm doing great. Callie, good to see you. How you doing? So, first news on tonight's live is just a general type of news of what's happening inside the market space and what's essentially pushing this market space a little bit higher, the momentum behind it. And the momentum behind it right now is still that regarding the CPI data was released. That CPI data essentially on the side note of a rate cut is pretty much underway in September, even according to 2 Fed members, is what's giving that edge towards the market space. Still, the market is, very excited about that matter. Major cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum surged today following the unexpected increases in essentially US consumer price index causing inflation, essentially prompting a risk-on rally in digital asset market spaces right now. While prices rise, concerns grow over increased market leverages and potential volatility, referencing essentially the precious balance between institutional engagements and speculative risk right now. The U.S. Consumer Essential Price Index CPI report showed that core inflation was slightly higher than expected. This led to renowned price essentially surges in cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and key players such as essentially Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, and Solana are actively responding to the macroeconomic data right now. BlackRock's Ethereum essentially ETF recorded significant institutional inflows today as well, highlighting essentially a broad institutional engagement. Bitcoin essentially price surged above $120,000, while ETH exceeded $4,400 post CPI reports. Experts also are essentially raising concerns about the rising market leverage that's going on right now, which could lead to increased volatility in both gains and essentially downtrends. Institutional support for Ethereum is underscored by BlackRock's ETF crossing $10 billion in inflows. However, leverage positions essentially in perpetual contracts raises alarms about the potential instability inside the crypto market space. According to the Crosby essentially letter, with both macro and technical conditions pointing in the same direction, this environment may renown those essentially who find and park funds into top projects before moments of essentially builds. Further, the renowned essentially momentum in the crypto market space mirrors past trends where macroeconomic essentially easing led to significant rallies. The recent essentially rally has also drawn attention to leverage exposures, particularly in Ethereum space. Historical patterns suggest that high leverage and essentially concentrated positions have previously led to sharp market corrections during macroeconomic shifts, and current essentially leverage markets might amplify market volatility, according to market analysts. So, according to his new essentially news report that's coming out now, is the momentum that's still pushing the crypto market space just a little bit higher and a little bit higher, a little bit higher, is still on the momentum of the CPI data that was essentially released yesterday. That's still pushing the market on the higher end. Slowly. Also, it's because that data report that came out was an indication that we're going to be getting our rate cuts finally in September. That's if Jerome Powell does them. But even 2 Fed members have stood up and said that essentially they don't stand with Jerome Powell's perspective, and they essentially see a Fed rate cut happening very soon in September times. Also, interesting enough, in September time is when the Clarity Act is going to get a second round of voting. So not only would it be so perfect to get rate cuts in September, but September 30th is also going to be the Clarity Act second round of voting. And then straight after, or essentially within a week, Trump will sign the Clarity Act into power. We know for a fact that the Clarity Act is going to pass because the last time they did voting on the Genius Act, the people that rejected it straight after approved it. So we know for a fact the Clarity Act is going to pass through as well. So September could be the month where essentially Clarity Act passes, which essentially gives that credibility towards cryptocurrencies, and the CFTC and SEC knows where they stand on that matter. And it could be the month of rate cuts. 2 massive positive things. 1, clarity for the crypto space, and 2, rate cuts that we essentially waiting for the longest time could be happening both in the same month. That is essentially what's driving this market space right now, because no bad news has came out so far. However, we do also have the Putin and Trump sit down happening on Friday, which we're going to get a little bit more into today as well. That could maybe essentially have some situation side effects in the market space. But I did say that, if the talks go good, then it's brilliant for the market space because we can move on. The war will end, the tariff situations will end. If the essentially, talks between Trump and Putin go bad, the market will react in a shock for about 48 hours max and then go back to normal. Now, moving on from that, but keeping it quite relative to Fed rate cuts, which is what's one of the mementos that's pushed the market space a little bit higher, is this. Crucial Fed rate cut 2025. Bostic signal essentially vision for economic stability. Atlanta's Fed president, Bostic, recently shared his views that a single Fed rate cut in 2025 remains the most appropriate path forward. This perspective, as reported by essentially Jensen Finance, highlights a cautious stance within the Federal Reserves regarding the pace of the monetary essentially policy and adjustments. Bostic's outlooks essentially is not a definitive promise, but rather a conditional assessment of the matter. He essentially emphasizes that this solidarity cut hinges significantly on the continuation and strength and stability of the labor markets. This measured approach suggests that while the inflation may be moderating, essentially the Fed is keen to avoid any sort of essentially premature easing that could reinitiate price pressures. His comments also offer a glimpse into the internal disparities shaping future discussions inside the US as well in terms of interest rates. It underscores the Fed's commitment to data dependency, prioritizing robust economic indicators over aggressive timelines for rate reductions. Bostic's view, one of the Fed rate cuts in 2025, is one voice among many within the Federal Reserve. The broader monetary policy outlook right now is often a complex mosaic essentially of differing opinions and forecasts from various FOMC members. While some officials might advocate for more aggressive cuts and essentially inflation cools rapidly, others may prefer to hold the rates at a much more higher for longer to ensure inflation is truly essentially gone. The diversity essentially of opinions is reflected in the Fed's dot plot, which essentially visualizes individual members' projections for the future interest rates that's going to be happening. The current consensus generally essentially points towards a more gradual easing of cycle than essentially some market participants initially hoped for happening. The Fed essentially remains committed to its strategy of observing essentially economic data much more closely before making a definitive moves, emphasizing patience in its approach to managing US interest rates. The conditions for Bostic's projected single Fed rate cut in 2025, a stable essentially labor market is paramount. A robust labor market categorized by low unemployment and steady essentially job creations without fueling inflation, or essentially provides the foundation for overall economic stability. If the labor market shows signs of weakness, such as rising unemployment or significant job losses, the Fed might essentially consider more aggressive rate cuts to stimulate the economy. If wages essentially growth accelerates too quickly, it could also signal inflationary pressures, prompting the Fed to maintain higher rates. Therefore, closely monitoring the labor market trend is essential for predicting the Fed's next steps in this matter. For businesses and individuals, understanding these dynamics can help the planning and making informed financial discussions in changing essentially economic landscapes. Atlantic's essentially Fed President Bostic projection of a single Fed rate cut this year underscores a cautious, data-dependent approach to monetary policies. His emphasis on a stable, essentially labor market as essentially highlights the Fed's commitments to balancing inflation control with economic growth. While this outlook suggests a much more slower pace on that matter of easing, some might desire. It reflects a strict effort to ensure long-term economic stability. As the year progresses, all eyes will remain on key economic indicators, particularly the labor market trends, to see if Bostic's singular vision aligns with the broader consensus and the ultimate path of US interest rate cuts. So far, two people have come forward essentially from the Fed suggesting that they stand against Jerome Powell and that interest rate cuts should be happening. Now we also have the Fed, essentially the Atlantic Fed president, coming forward, Bostic, and saying that rate cuts should be happening. It's essentially, it's not that the matter of it's not going to be happening in 2025. According to his vision, it's going to be happening. It's just how aggressive is the rate cut going to be? The more aggressive it is, the better the crypto market will react. If it's too aggressive, though, it can end also very bad. So it has to be somewhere in between, preferably. Now, that's also driving the market space up, that so many high-profile, essentially, seats are coming forward, going against Jerome Powell and standing with Trump's administration, suggesting that rate cuts should be happening. The next news we're going to go through on tonight's live is a quite interesting one. It's regarding cryptocurrency wallets, which is something that everybody uses inside the crypto space, and Google. preferably Google Play Store, which is now going around banning certain crypto wallets. Before we go through that news, let's go inside the comment section first. Let's see what's going on there, and then we'll go straight into the next news. As I said previously, this is live, which means if you have any questions or statements, put it down in the comment section. More than happy to help you out. So let's see where we were at inside the comment section. We were at here. Scott shared the live. Let's go, Scott. Share the live. Hit the like button. Let's go, Scott. Do you think tomorrow's meeting in Alaska could affect the market in one way or another? If essentially it has certain implications that's related to the market space, sure, definitely. If it's related to energy, if it's related to the labor market, especially, or essentially any sort of CPI data reports, or in any sort of a way related to the crypto market space, or even the stock market, it could weigh into that matter, yes. Is it going to be major effects? Probably not. Hello, how you doing, Emir? Hi, Miles and CMF family. Good to see you guys. I understand the CEO of Terra Luna has pleaded guilty. That's correct, yes. The CEO of Terra Luna pleaded guilty yesterday on the fraud situation of Terraform Labs. And he's, in the early days, he didn't accept that he was at fault in any sort of way, but he's decided to take the route that CZ took, which was just to plead guilty, get it over with. Because even if he didn't plead guilty, they would have still found him on some sort of charges to keep him back. Hi, Miles and CMF. Stormy, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? And also that, regarding the CEO of Terraform Labs, it didn't really impact the market space in a negative way either. Now, good to see you as well, Stormy. How you doing? Google bans unlicensed crypto wallets in the US and in the EU. So Google is going around banning crypto wallets on essentially their app stores. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, so far it could be seen as a good thing because they're getting rid of unlegitimate, essentially, crypto wallets that could potentially turn out to be draining your cryptocurrencies. So here it is. Google's recent policy update has prohibited crypto wallets on their Play Store in the US and EU unless they have a federal or regional license effective as of August 2025. The policy may significantly impact crypto wallets' availability on Android devices, pushing for compliance and expenditures and altering essentially market dynamics for mobile cryptocurrency users. This could go both ways. It could be good because it's safeguarding people from downloading essentially fake crypto wallets. It could also be bad where essentially certain countries won't let you access the DeFi store, let's just say, for example, the DeFi section of the crypto space, because they don't like the idea of their citizens entering into the DeFi section of the crypto space. Google has essentially instituted a ban on crypto wallets from the Play Store in the US and in the EU. The restriction applies unless wallets secure federal or regional licenses impacting both custodial and non-custodial essentially types as of August 2025. That's going to be an interesting one because if it's essentially a non-custodial, if it's a type of wallet that was just designed by a few developers and it's not an established company in any sort of way, how is that supposed to get a license to operate? You're effectively saying, if you are a DeFi wallet developed by essentially an open essentially book of developers around the world, then you won't be on the Google Play Store and people can't, from the retail section, download your app. Essentially, it almost seems like a censorship of crypto wallets on the Google Play Store. This is like the beginnings of not only that we just had censorship regarding what you can say online, especially essentially in the United Kingdom and even in the EU, but now we're getting censorship on certain wallets that we can download and can't download inside the crypto space. It almost seems like we're being herded like sheep, when essentially the shepherd opens and closes a door for sheep to pass through. It almost seems like we're getting to those stages. It's a good thing the CMF essentially is fully prepared for a digital world. Google's policy now requires compliance with FinCEN, state banking, or MiC licenses for wallet apps. This affects essentially Android users and developers, curtailing the availability of software wallets in these regions. The policy change impacts the startups and open source communities by imposing new compliance costs. It also could drive non-custodial wallets out of the Play Store, which means the DeFi space is about to exit the EU and the US. by the looks of it. The demand essentially for compliance may lead to higher operational costs, diverting resources from innovation. The chilling effect on new wallets launches suggests potential essentially contraction, hindering growth in software wallet adoptions among new users. Industry insiders perceive essentially the new policy as a move towards more centralized control. Remember when I was telling everybody that if we're going to go into a digital world, for the longest time, I've been saying, honestly, for the longest time, I've been saying that going into a digital world is nothing to do with decentralization. I said, if we're going towards a digital world that's going to look like we have decentralization, but elements, my exact words were, elements of centralization will always exist. And then now you have essentially the EU and the US banning certain crypto wallets. And especially if they're made by a few developers around the world that are not companies, how are they supposed to get licensings to be able to operate? So essentially they're herding you which way you can go inside the digital world. So industry insiders perceive this new policy move towards more centralized control. Resistance from developer communities is expected, citing concerns over open source development and regulatory alignments exceeding US requirements for non-custodial wallets. Potential outcomes include a shift to web-based solutions as developers seek alternatives to the Play Store. You know what the good thing essentially is about Android also? If you are an Android user, if you're an iOS user, nowadays you can get away with it as well. I have both Android essentially and iOS, but regarding Android, developers could just create it and release the updates of their wallet app on third-party app stores, for example. But obviously, people have to make sure that they're downloading the correct, essentially, update, and it's not just a malware they're downloading on their devices, which could get confusing with certain people. But potential outcomes include a shift to web-based solutions. So some developers are starting to move away from the Google Play Store because it's becoming too centralized. Historical trends indicate that regulatory bans have not critically essentially altered major blockchain networks. Those smaller projects may witness disrupted market dynamics. As stated essentially by Vitalik Buterin, the co-founder of Ethereum, the need for licenses for non-custodial wallets is excessive and goes beyond what is necessary to ensure security and compliance. I agree 100%. So, for example, the wallets that would get licensings, in my opinion, Tangent will get a license, Ledger will get a license because they can afford it. And the other essentially cold storage wallets, the most famous ones, will also get a license as well. Regarding the hot wallets, it's going to be interesting. Trust Wallet could, in a very odd way be able to do it because Trust Wallet is owned by another company, so maybe that way they can get it. MetaMask is also owned by Consensus, so maybe essentially through Consensus they can get a license. So there are certain ways and certain wallets will exist, but alternative wallets that small-time developers are creating and so on, they're going to be banned completely unless people want to download them from third-party websites. That might discourage some people because in case they download malware on their phones. So we have to see how time goes by, how things are going to be changing. But this is why I said it's extremely open. Essentially, it's extremely important to be first in line. This is why I said for the longest time, it's extremely important to be first in line. In other words, if you know about certain things inside the crypto space, jump on it. This is why I said a long time ago to people that essentially, if you already have, for example, a Binance account and you don't have a Crypto.com account or a Coinbase account, open one up. Because I said now it's easy to open these accounts up. Later on, a few years' time, it's going to be so strict to open essentially these accounts up. This is why I said to people that essentially own certain wallets, get another wallet, or essentially you have a Trust Wallet, and so on and so on. Because later on, maybe these difficulties will make it very difficult for you to be able to operate inside the crypto space. And that day by day, what I've said is happening like a domino effect, you could say. And I'm not saying this in any sort of way to be cocky. I'm just saying this essentially so once again, people are fully aware of what's happening, which is we might be living in a decentralized world, but elements of centralization are always going to exist. Because it's about going into a digital world with invisible prison bars. Bullish is what we're going to talk about next. Before we talk about that, let's consider the comment section first. And if you're thinking to yourself, well, That doesn't include iPhone users. If Google Play Store is going to do it because they're pressured by the EU and the US, then obviously Apple is going to get pressured by the EU and the US and do it as well. Otherwise, they're going to be looking at a massive fine. And I don't think Apple wants to pay a massive fine. What is because Apple tried to go up against the UK government regarding censorship and they lost. I don't know in any sort of way why Apple thought they're going to win in a British court against the British government. It's just not going to win. Now, what is the best free wallet to hold your XRP and XLM on, in your opinion? Zaman wallet, definitely, I would have to say. Please share your thoughts from a few programs ago concerning Flare. My thoughts on Flare are still the same. I don't see it in any sort of a way as a must-have project at all. If somebody does hold it, I wish them the best and I hope to do well. Does this mean that wallet news is concerning? I agree. Scott, what is the best free wallet for XRP? Zaman, 100%. Essentially for XRP and XLM, Trust Wallet. It's free. It's a hot wallet, but it's free. Miles, have you essentially read anything on WAL? I haven't. No, I can check it out after this live. Great question, Adi. I can't wait to hear Miles's response regarding XRP and XLM. If you want both of them on the same wallet, Trust Wallet, it's free, in my opinion. If you want the best free wallet, it's a hot wallet, it's Trust Wallet for XRP and XLM. If you want them separate wallets, then essentially, Zaman wallet for XRP and essentially XLM's wallet for itself. Miles, I used Tangent. Zaman will definitely get a license. Zaman wallet will definitely get a license. Yeah, I agree 100%. They'll make it work somehow. Miles, I use Tangent. Do I need another wallet? You're perfectly fine. Just stick with Tangent is what I would say. Miles, I haven't forgotten you about my question last night. What strategy should I implement to fully comply with their regulations while remaining discreet about the existence of my crypto wallets? You can still operate in gray areas for the time being until the rules are fully established. 2026 is when the rules get fully established, to be fairly honest. No financial advice at all regarding the EU. Good evening, Miles and CMF Bull XRP. Good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Now, it's not just crypto projects that are doing essentially tremendously well. It's also crypto companies. Wall Street is excited about crypto, tokenization, and blockchain companies. Bullish stock has just surged 218% on the New York Stock Exchange. It debuts as a crypto enters essentially Wall Street's limelight. Cryptocurrency exchange operator and media company Bullish made an enormous public debut on the New York Stock Exchange, with shares essentially surging as much as 218%, a clear sign essentially of heightened institutional appetite for crypto-related assets. After a few essentially weeks of speculation, Bullish went public today with an IPO price of $37 above its earlier target range of $32 to $33. The stock trading under the ticker essentially symbol BLSH soared to an essentially in-trade high of $118, marking essentially a 218% gain from its IPO price. On trading essentially volumes and roughly 38 million shares according to Yahoo Finance data. By the afternoon session, Bullish shares essentially were still up 131% at about $86, giving the company a market capitalization of roughly $13 billion. As Cointelegraph reported, Bullish has initially aimed for a $4.8 billion valuation based on planned issuance of 20.3 million shares. However, reports that essentially confirmed today that the company issued 30 million shares in its debut, an indication of strong pent-up demands. Founded in 2021 as an institutional essentially digital asset platform, Bullish expanded into the crypto media in 2023 with a $72.6 million acquisition of CoinDesk, the world's second largest crypto publication by readership. The company counts PayPal essentially co-founder Peter Thiel among its backers. Bullish initially planned to go public via essentially special purpose acquisition company, SPAC in other words, in 2021, but the deal ultimately fell through. That delay might have ultimately worked in essentially favor of Bullish because in 2025 it is proving to be a much more favorable environment for crypto-focused IPOs. I agree with that 100%. Under Trump's administration, crypto is absolutely thriving. An increasing number of essentially digital asset companies are also going public on Wall Street, buoyed by Trump's administration push for essentially innovation and adoption through the recently intact Genius Act, as well as the pending essentially Clarity Act and the Anti-CBDC Surveillance Act, both of which passed through the House of Representatives before August recess. The public debut of Bullish reflects a clear surge in institutional appetite for crypto-native companies. Peter, essentially the co-founder and CEO of Web3 payment platforms Mercury, told Cointelegraph, "We're seeing a demand for IPOs coming from institutional investors who are now actively looking for exposure to the companies that essentially connect digital tokens, services to the real economy, whether that be exchanges, stablecoin issuers, or even payment essentially platforms," he said. He also attributed that the trend to clearer, more industry regulatory shifts worldwide, which has made compliant crypto firms increasingly attractive to major investors. The Bullish IPO has not been chasing hype and is a clear example of this pattern at play. It is firm with strong governance and a regulated approach and institutional-grade infrastructure, he added. That could help explain why Bullish regulatory filings identified affiliates of BlackRock and ARK Investment Management among the largest essentially buyers of its IPO. So Wall Street is not only excited about tokenization of the stock market, not only essentially are they excited about more ETFs entering the market space, but they're also excited about blockchain companies. This is brilliant because, in other words, liquidity is going to be entering every corner of the essentially crypto space, you can pretty much say. In other words, through the doors and windows, liquidity is coming through. Ethereum is what we're going to talk about next on tonight's live. Before we talk about Ethereum, let's go inside the comment section first, and then we go straight into the Ethereum news. So let's see where we're at. We were at here, but next up, you get to see how you're doing. I sent my question to you on TikTok, but didn't work. Do you prefer I send it through Telegram? CMF family? Yes, Carl, send it to me through Telegram. Sorry that I didn't get back to you on Telegram, on essentially TikTok. Apologies about that. But yeah, send it through Telegram. Why not? Good evening, all. Curtis, good to see you. How you doing? How you been, brother? Now, Ethereum. Ethereum or Carl, essentially Tom Lee, shares a new record prediction for ETH price. Now, we do always get essentially people coming out and saying regarding Bitcoin, certain CEOs or board members or CFOs will be coming out and saying Bitcoin will be $200,000, $215,000 or so on, or whatever, $300,000 by the end of the year. We started to get some other predictions coming in. Some CEOs essentially predicting for Ethereum what it's going to reach, for XRP what it's going to reach, and so on. This one is about Ethereum, and it's a little bit different compared to the rest. Foxtrot's co-founder Tom Lee, while evaluating the rise in markets after the Consumer Price Index report that came out regarding the US and came in better than expected, he said that Ethereum has the potential to even surpass Bitcoin in the long term. Now, I don't know how Bitcoin maxis are going to be taking this when essentially a CEO of a company is coming forward and saying that Ethereum one day in the long run is going to overtake Bitcoin. I've said this previously, one day in the long term, XRP is going to take over Bitcoin. And Bitcoin maxis will completely lose it and say, no, that's never going to happen. XRP is never going to go above Bitcoin. It's just never going to happen. And now we have essentially a co-founder of a company coming out and saying, well, Ethereum is also going to be going above that too. Speaking to CNBC, Lee stated that the strong liquidity environment will be positive for financial sectors, small cap stocks and cryptocurrencies, saying Ethereum has surged 28% this year, outperforming Bitcoin, while XRP has surged essentially over 400% outperforming Bitcoin. According to our research, Ethereum could be the next biggest macro trade for the next 10 to 15 years. Lee explained that essentially this optimism stems from the growth of stablecoin ecosystems and Wall Street's shift to blockchain. Stablecoins are providing essentially a ChatGPT moment for the crypto space right now. Giants like JP Morgan, Coinbase, and Robinhood are developing Ethereum-based solutions. Wall Street is building tokenization of the financial sector. And he also recalled that Standard Chartered Bank raised its year-end Ethereum price target from $4,000 to $7,500. Lee noted that the current essentially 4,700 level is very close to the 4,800 level, essentially peak back in 2021. I think that essentially, if this level is broken, 7,500 could be a lower bond, and even in a range of $10,000 to $15,000 is possible, he said. Listing potential, essentially Fed interest rate cuts, strong earnings seasons, and positive investor sentiments inside the market space among macro essentially factors can support Ethereum's rise. It could also support XRP's rise, Solana's rise, Cardano's rise, XLM, XDC, and so on, and even AVAX. Lee also stated that essentially he sees NVIDIA as one of the essentially most important companies in the long run. So According to one co-founder, Ethereum could be going after Bitcoin's seat for number one. Also, regarding the Standard Chartered bank perspective that just recently changed, Standard Chartered Bank previously said, Ethereum is going to be topping out at $4,700 this year, and that's it. Well, their newest opinion adds a little bit more to it. Standard Chartered's Ethereum price analysis reveals a hidden buying spree. Institutions have observed nearly 4% of supply since June, setting a stage for a year-end surge that could propel assets to $7,500 rather than suggested $4,700. On August 13th, Ethereum traded within striking distance of a fresh all-time high, while Standard Chartered analysts made an upward revision to their Ethereum forecast. The analysis nearly doubled its year-end price target to $7,500 from its previous $4,000 estimate valuation. The bank's digital asset research team, led by Jeff, pointed to accelerating institutional demand with crypto treasuries and spot ETFs collectively absorbing 3.8% of ETH's circulating supply in just over 2 months. The pace of accumulation, Kendrick noted, is almost twice as fast as Bitcoin's peak institutional inflows during its 2021 bull run. Standard Chartered's bullish outlook on Ethereum hinges on their three converging factors: institutional accumulation, policy tailwinds, and the network's evolving technical infrastructure. The bank's analyst estimates that corporate treasuries and spot ETFs have absorbed that roughly 3.8%. Policy developments further strengthen the case. According to the analysis, the passage of the Genius Act, which establishes a regulatory framework for stablecoins, directly benefits Ethereum as well as the primary settlement layer for dollar-pegged stablecoins. Also, it was announced yesterday that USDC is now going to be taking USDC as a fee, as a gas token, rather than taking Ethereum as a gas token for transactions. So with that, Standard Chartered projection for the stablecoin market could also grow 8-fold by 2028, reaching $2 trillion, a surge that would cement Ethereum's role as a backbone of crypto dollarized economy. Technological upgrades also play a critical role. Per the bank's analysis, the Ethereum Foundation focused on scaling layer 1 for high value transactions, while offloading volume to layer 2s like Base and Arbitrum could make the network more attractive for institutional adoption. While spot markets dominate headlines, Ethereum's derivatives actively reveal a more nuanced story. Kraken's ETH contracts and future contracts recently hit an all-time high in open interest, becoming exchange's most traded contracts, yet founding rates remain subdued, suggesting traders are deploying capital strictly. Alexei, Kraken's director of derivatives, said in a statement obtained by Crypto.news that this reflects a much more mature market space right now that we're in. So according to Kraken's director of derivatives, this is what he said regarding what the market space is, the level it's in right now. In the current market environments, many traders appear to be turning to futures contracts as capital-efficient ways to gain directional exposure to Ethereum, allowing them to express conviction while keeping capital available for other opportunities. This view is reinforced by the fact that funding rates for ETH contracts, while positive, remains relatively moderate, suggesting that the market has yet to reach its peak euphoria. This measured positioning aligns with Standard Chartered's thesis that Ethereum's price value has the room to run forward. Standard Chartered's updated targets outline a multi-layer trajectory for Ethereum: $12,000 by late 2026, $18,000 by 2027, $25,000 per Ethereum by 2028 and 2029. These projections assume Ethereum maintains its dominance in stablecoins and DeFi, where it hosts 65% of the total value locked in, while capturing a larger share of the traditional finance activity. This is only on the basis that Ethereum stays in this position of power it's sitting in right now, moving forward. In my opinion, XRP is 1 billion% going to be outperforming Ethereum in every aspect, to be fairly honest, because even though Ethereum might have got that head start because of the whole ETHgate situation, which can be proven, can't be proven scenario, even though Ethereum got a head start with also their Ethereum ETFs, still nothing matches up to how much Ripple has acquired licensings, acquired companies around the world, to establish itself and to establish its own payment system, RippleNet, which also now connects to the use case of XRP and RLUSD. So in my opinion, Is Ethereum going to be maintaining that 65% essentially market share going forward? Hell no. XRP is going to outperform the crap out of it. The bank contrasts essentially Ethereum's price path with Bitcoin's maintaining the $200,000 end for 2025 for Bitcoin. Standard Chartered Bank is also saying, Bitcoin $200,000 by the end of the year. For institutions, it's just about the price appreciation. Kendrick argues it's about capturing the value of the ecosystem being built up on top of it. In my point of view, any institution that isn't going for the XRP ledger for finance purposes and is rather going towards Ethereum, they're being sold a pipe dream. Honestly, you are honestly being sold a pipe dream if you're choosing Ethereum over the XRP ledger regarding finance. If you're choosing the essentially ETH ledger regarding finance over the XRP ledger, you are being sold a pipe dream because it's nowhere near as good as the XRP ledger in every aspect. Regarding finance, financial transactions only. Now, Trump is what we're going to talk about now, and Putin. Before we talk about that, let's go start a conversation first. See where we're at. And let's not forget, XRP still has the highest open interest on any exchange. Hi, Miles and family. Alex, good to see you. How you doing, Alex? How you been? Curtis, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Can you share your opinion on how people will accept the paradigm shift brought about by CBDCs? In France, people still seem to be asleep. That the world of Alice in the Wonderland. Regarding essentially CBDCs, can you share your opinion on how people will accept the paradigm shift brought about by CBDCs? In France, people still seem to be asleep. Well, if in France people still seem to be asleep, that's a perfect breeding ground for CBDCs. If people are still very focused on that matter, then it's a perfect breeding ground for CBDCs. Look, I'll be very honest with you. Going forward, 2030 onwards, the world is going to become a very, very, it's all about the wording here. It's going to get to a stage, let me just put it this way, it's going to get to a stage where nothing is going to matter. Whatever they say, the people who are on CBDCs are going to be accepting it. The majority of people are going to go on CBDCs. People who receive benefits from governments will be the first one. If you receive any sort of benefits from essentially the government, you're the first one to be in CBDCs. Now, I saw a podcast essentially where an economist was invited on and he gave his perspectives, a British economist, he gave his perspectives on CBDCs and said essentially, not on CBDCs, but he gave his perspective that this digital pound is coming, and if you essentially get benefits, you're going to be the first one on CBDCs. Now, benefits is something that's very universal. It happens in the EU, the UK, Australia, and everywhere else. And they said the people that receive these types of benefits from the government, subsidies essentially from the government, will be the first one on CBDCs. And the perspective was from him that don't accept it. If you have to starve yourself, and don't accept essentially a digital version of your money, because then you'll be controlled. And they said also, if they say, you can't go to work anymore because you don't have a CBDC wallet, that's the only way your company can pay you, then don't go to work. It's a very stupid perspective to have, in my opinion. Positioning yourself for a digital world, regarding understanding what a digital world is and how you can benefit from a digital world, is 10 times better than just starving yourself or not going to work. That's a stupid idea. So people who receive essentially subsidies from essentially the government, benefit wise or so on, they will be the first one on CBDCs because they don't have a choice. Then it's going to be companies that's going to be putting people into CBDCs because they'll say that's the only way they can pay their wages out, even though they'll make it look like it's optional. But the world is very busy right now. Everybody's distracted by a lot of things. Every country, for some oddly reason, has an open border. It's easier for people to come into countries now than ever before. In fact, they're welcomed in with a red carpet. Not going to say anything more on that because it's a very touchy subject, especially, regarding censorship issues that are going on right now. But they're keeping everyone very distracted. They have war scenarios going on, geopolitical tension scenarios going on right now. They're opening their borders. The people are distracted with other people. There's also the idea that a religious war is brewing up as well. That essentially, they're trying to get Muslims and Christians and Jewish and Hindu and all these types of religions. They're trying to make people go at each other's throats for some oddly reason. I'll be very honest. When we live in a digital world, it wouldn't really matter even what religion you are in that type of digital world that we're heading towards. Some people might say, well, this is just ludicrous and it's just crazy. That makes no sense. Look, the digital world that you're going to all be living in, and by the way, these are things that I said, 3 years ago that are all happening like a domino effect. 3 years ago, I said censorship. I said the same thing that China is going through right now. 3 years ago, I said the same thing that China is going through right now is essentially regarding censorship, CBDC wallets, social credit systems, and the test studies that's being done over there. I said, if you want to know where your country is headed, just look at China. Whatever China does, your country's pretty much next. And this was before any other country had anything to do with the digital world. Only China was involved inside the CBDC, social credit system, censorship world, and so on. And now, you fast forward to now where we have censorships, we have CBDCs, 98% of centralized banks and CBDCs, wholesale CBDCs, retail CBDCs, social credit systems has been discussed, digital passports has been discussed, the invisible bars are being discussed, censorship is being discussed, censorship of essentially what you can use on the Play Store is being discussed now as well, what you say is being discussed right now. Look, we're going to get to a stage where essentially it wouldn't even matter what religion you are by that time, because it's going to be such a restrictive world for people that haven't prepared for it, that they could tell you, the new person you're going to be worshiping is, for example, Alexandra. Let's just say Satan in this sense. It's Satan. Your new god is Satan. And because you live in a CBDC world, you could be Christian, you could be Muslim, you could be Hindu, you could be Jewish, you could be any religion you want. As much as that matters now, it wouldn't matter so much in a digital world, because it's going to become such a restrictive digital world that your thoughts won't be yours. What you see, even though you might see something, you can't see it. So it's going to become such an invisible prison world where they could tell you essentially your new god is going to be Satan, and people will have to agree with it. Otherwise, they'll be cut off from everything. They'll be cut off entirely by the rest of the world. They won't be able to travel. They won't be able to leave their homes. They won't be able to get a job. They won't be able to feed their families. They won't be able to feed themselves. So honestly, now it might seem like it's essentially a religious war scenario that's also brewing up. There's so many distractions going on right now in the world with geopolitical tensions, open borders, and censorship issues, and so many other things. And then there's the other issue of brewing of, which religion is the best religion, or so on. We all believe in the same God at the end of the day, but they have people so occupied with their thoughts right now that honestly, in a CBDC world, they couldn't care less what you believe in, because what you believe in will be what they tell you you're going to believe in. So right now, honestly, people who are focused on geopolitical tensions, people are focused on essentially these religious wars that are going on, the censorship issues going on, these are minuscule compared to what's going to be happening later on when you're so trapped inside of a digital world. Honestly, they will tell you your new god that you're going to be worshiping is Satan, and you could be Jewish, Muslim, Christian, Catholic, Protestant, whatever you want to be. They couldn't care less, because they control you so much on what you see, what you hear, what you say, where you work, how you earn, what you eat. They control every aspect of your life. There's a reason why the World Economic Forum said essentially that whatever you own, you will own nothing and be happy, because that's just what's going to happen. The reason why you will own nothing and be happy is because they'll tell you to be happy. And if you don't react in a happy manner, they'll probably essentially, lower your social credit system in some sort of a way. That's the type of world that we're heading towards right now, and people are not understanding. People are so focused on essentially the geopolitical tensions, essentially the war scenarios that are going on, the macroeconomic data effects, the situation, censorship issues, the open borders. Oh, they're letting in essentially these types of people, those types of people. That doesn't matter, because later on, everybody's going to be under the same roof. And if they tell you this is your new god, Satan, for example, the majority will say, yep, this is the new god, because they have no choice. Because every aspect of your life will be controlled. This is why it's so important that people understand preparing for such a cruel world is absolutely essential. Preparing honestly for a digital world that we're heading towards is absolutely crucial for your own livelihood, for your own family. So this is why I say people need to wake up and realize what's about to happen next, if they already haven't. Based on your question of essentially people are so sound asleep they wouldn't even understand it. People need to realize and wake up the bigger picture. This is one of the quotes my father's always told me as a child, which is, don't look at the tip of your nose, look further. Essentially, because if you look at the tip of your nose, you're seeing all this geopolitical tension, open borders, censorship, and whatever. You look beyond your nose, you're seeing the bigger picture of this is just the beginning. And later on, you could be, even the religious wars that are going on right now, people saying, oh, these people are coming into this country or whatever. It's a bigger agenda behind it, where you're all going to be in the same digital prison with invisible bars. And honestly, they could tell you, your new god is this, and you would have no choice but to accept that if you live under a CBDC world. Because they're going to tell you what to see, what to hear, what to say, where to work, what to eat, where to earn, and so if you reject that, then you'll be cut off completely from life. And they've started censorship online already, for example, regarding essentially being inside a digital world right now, going on social media in the UK, and the EU is going to start as well, even in the US and Canada and Australia and so on, going on essentially social media. You're going to need an ID going on social media. Eventually, you're going to be needing an ID to go on Google. You're going to be needing a digital ID for everything. And if you say something out of line, you're going to be completely cancelled. Forget about cancel culture. This is a whole new level where if you existed or didn't exist, it wouldn't matter. So this is why it's so crucial to prepare for a digital world, to understand how to benefit from a digital world, rather than just sit on the sidelines and go, oh, well, whatever happens, happens, or they can't control me, or I have rights, I have freedom of speech, I have this. You have absolutely nothing. You had nothing from the beginning. But for some oddly reason, you believe the BS they've been feeding you over the years, where you have freedom of speech and human rights and this and that. You had absolutely nothing from the day you were born. You had none of those rights. You had the illusion of those rights, but you didn't actually have the rights. And if you ever stepped out of line, they would bring you back into line. But in a digital world, if you step out of line, that's it. You existing or not existing makes zero difference, because you're cut off from everything. Even being barred to buy food from a supermarket. You won't be able to buy bread from a supermarket if you get barred in a CBDC world. So this is why I'm saying people are so busy right now, focused on everything that's going on, thinking this is the bigger agenda. Oh, open borders, censorship. There's so much more to it that people need to understand. So if you haven't already entered into a digital world and don't know what a digital world is, or essentially do know and don't even bother, coming into it, please understand what's happening around you. If you don't prepare now, you're doomed for the rest of your life. Absolutely doomed for the rest of your life. Understand, for example, projects like, no word of a lie, projects like XRP Ledger. As I've said previously, the XRP Ledger, in my opinion, can save your life later on. Forget about even XRP. XRP Ledger can bring you so much money, because it can. Later on, it can bring you a tremendous amount of money. But XRP Ledger, in my opinion, can save your life later on in the digital world, is what I'm trying to tell people. It can literally save your life. It can save your life and your family's life by preparing for a digital world. Understanding who is behind a digital world, who gets invited essentially to, the World Economic Forum events. The World Economic Forum, the most powerful people on this planet that we get to see, and there are ones that we never get to see. They can walk past us on the street. We wouldn't even know this guy runs the show. But the ones that we can see that run the show invite certain companies to do speeches about a digital world. Those should be indications of, okay, maybe this company is involved in some parts of this digital world, especially a company that gets invited to the World Economic Forum event for every blockchain event. So that should give you a perspective of, okay, maybe this company is involved because this company keeps on doing speeches with these rich, powerful people that keep on telling us, be happy and own nothing. So there's a reason why they keep on inviting certain companies and to do certain speeches. And so you should just put 2 and 2 together to get a better understanding on that matter. So honestly, if you're still somebody that's hesitant or hasn't entered the digital world and so on, and especially if you're, an adult that has a family, if you're a man, if you're essentially a husband or a wife and you have a family, if you can't be bothered to do this for yourself, be bothered at least to safeguard your children's future that's essentially going into a censored, invisible digital world. If you're essentially a husband or a wife and you have kids, you have a family, take responsibility. If you're that lazy to not do it for yourself, at least position your kids' futures so they can at least be free in such a cruel world that we're heading towards, is the best I could put it. Honestly, if you're so lazy that you won't do it for yourself, if you're somebody that still hasn't entered the crypto space and you're so lazy and so unbothered because you think it doesn't matter and you won't do it for yourself, but you are a family man or essentially you're a mother that has kids, at least do it for your kids' future. Get up and do it for your kids' future. Understand what a digital world is, how it's going to affect you, how it's going to affect your kids, and position yourself properly. Because honestly, it's one thing to be unbothered and screw your own future, but don't be a twat to screw your kids' future as well. The best way I could put it. Now, let's go to the comment section before we do go essentially into the next news on tonight's live. I hope that helped. I hope the speech that I just gave helped a lot of people to understand what's coming, how to prepare, and if you haven't still prepared, prepare. Even if it's not for yourself, at least for your kids. Let's see where we were inside the comment section. We were at here. Do you recommend holding XRP tokens or RUSD to cope with this banking? Yes, 100%. Facts. Let's go, Stormy. Which banks do you think will survive the Great Reset, and which banks do you recommend having a bank account with? Which banks do I think will essentially be okay in that digital reset? Banks that have already prepared themselves for a digital world. Banks that have partnerships inside a digital world, so banks that are partnered with Ripple, in my point of view, have a very bright future of themselves. So preferably look for those types of banks that have those partnerships and contracts in place, that have done something substantial inside a digital space. Morning, Miles and CMF. Shelly, good to see you as well. How you doing? Morning, how you been? Hello again, beautiful people. Let's go, Thompson. Lol, yeah, a mark on their forehead and the right hand. Let's go, Thompson. There are folks and do not believe the crypto system. Share the live, hit the like button. Let's go, Scott. Yeah, that's right, Miles. Preacher boss. Let's go, Thompson. Do you think it would be better to try living in more open-minded country like Vietnam or Burkina Faso, for example? It wouldn't matter where you would live on this planet because every country is going to be under the same umbrella. Easy way to put it. It's rich versus poor always and has been. And they control us by using our religion, ethnicities against each other. Facts. Eventually, nowhere is going to be safe. Facts. Stack your XRP bags, people. Facts. Facts only. Let's go, Saint. Hi, Miles. When do you think this bull run kick off big time? Well, we're on the way. I agree, Miles. Let's go, Scott. When can XRP show me returns soon or a few years? Soon, I would have to say. Miles, after listening to this, I feel like jumping over the bridge. Well, it's essentially, the best way to put it to you. It's a shock. It's a shock, and I want to shock people so they move faster. They react faster to what's about to happen. Is it just... it is not just XRP, it is all the ICE tokens that are going to work in conjunction with one another. Technically, there's no such thing, as I've said, for the longest time. There's no such thing as an ISO token. I've said this for years. No such thing as an ISO token. In Ripple's situation, Ripple is on the board of the ISOs. RippleNet is a part of the ISOs. However, RippleNet also now accepting XRP. XRP in itself is not an ISO token. RippleNet as the payment system is. Best way to put it. This world will become such a horrible place to live. Yes. But if you have crypto, it won't. I agree. I'm dollar cost averaging daily. Let's go, Scott. Literally everything is going on the right now is a massive distraction. Everything you said, Miles, is unfolding. Facts. That would be to have a family in the digital world. Facts. There's a reason why I say that I don't want to start a family. No point. I would rather just live my own life, call it a day. And everything I have eventually will go towards my foundation. The foundation that I said from day one, 3 years ago, I'm going to set up myself, and essentially through that foundation, I'm going to be feeding essentially as much, people who are unfortunate, children, for example, or even adults that are so unfortunate in life. Through my foundation, as I said from 3 years ago, I said I'm going to do this. The moment I'm at a level I can do it, I'm going to set up that foundation. I'm going to help as many people as I can. I'm going to help adults and children as much as I can. And then, when the time comes, it's time up for me to go from this world. I'm going to leave, everything I have towards my foundation. I'm not going to be having kids or, so, because there's no point. But, I might not have kids of my own, but I can have thousands. I can help thousands of kids through the foundation, and by leaving them, everything I have inside my crypto portfolio. But yeah, honestly, there's no point in my point of view having a family going towards the digital world. Unless you're prepared for it, there's no point. Facts. Let's go, Scott. So how many XRP do we really need to become financially independent and live a happy life? As much as you can is what's recommended. Even if you have 100 XRP, you can still do well. It might be later on, you can still do well. Facts. Let's go, Scott. If I hear crypto is a scam or a Ponzi scheme one more time, I might scream. Let's go, Stormy. Don't worry, boss. I've been listening to you for years from the time you were on TikTok. Let's go, Thompson. Brilliant speech, Miles. Spot on. Let's go, Crypto Dom. Thompson, let's go. Is 5,000 XRP enough or no? Don't want false hopes. 5,000 XRP is a great amount to have. Miles, today they rolled out face recognition cameras for the police. Yes, that's correct. They have inside the United Kingdom. They've rolled out face recognition cameras. There's also something that China had for the longest time. I said this to everyone a long time ago, 3 years ago. I said everything that you see in China is coming to you very soon. Well said. Let's go, JP. Even Miles of CMF, good to see you as well. Peg, how you doing? Hello, my friends. Oh, let's go. The idiot extreme leftists that rolled out the red carpet, the communist right carpet for CBDCs, are not even watching the show. The intelligent ones are watching the show. Let's go, Pisces. Facts. I really saying the multiple times about the foundation, Miles. Let's go, Scott. Thank you, Miles, for answering the question. Thank you, Miles, for answering the question. I also wanted to allow people in the group to benefit from the analysis to create a trigger to take the right action. Let's go, Carl. No problem. Miles, put your trust. Kudos to you, Miles. Miles, put your trust in God and look as it's a challenge for you and your kids. I meant the communist and red carpet, not right. Fair enough. You are one of a kind. Love the foundation plan. Let's go, Peg. God is the best planner of all. I agree 100%. Now, Trump and Putin is what we're going to talk about next. Trump and Putin. Miles, aka GOAT, crypto greatest of all time. Let's go, Scott. I've always gone against the system. Let's go, thank you, brother. Your information are very vital, boss. Thank you, Saint, for the kind words. Now, I really appreciate it. No problem, Saint. Trump and Putin is what we're going to talk about next. Trump, Putin, diplomacy excludes Ukraine. So more information has come out regarding is Ukraine going to be sitting at a table when Trump and Putin, come to their discussions? Seems like no. It seems like Trump is going to be the one that essentially discusses the terms of where Ukraine is going to stand. President Trump and Russian President Putin are set to meet essentially on Friday, as we said. The meeting highlights the ongoing US, essentially Russian diplomatic efforts, yet lacks verified essentially impacts on cryptocurrency markets or official statements endorsing a broader engagement. The anticipated meeting between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin centers on Ukraine, focusing on ceasefire talks. However, the Ukrainian leadership involvement in any essential discussions remains unconfirmed, as reported by official channels. Trump and Putin are actively engaging in essential negotiations, aiming for a ceasefire with essentially Ukraine. An immediate, essentially imminent meeting between Trump and essentially Russian President Vladimir Putin is planned and linked essentially to ceasefire negotiations, but there is no mentions of Ukraine's participation at this time. Despite extensive diplomacy, including US envy efforts, a essentially summit involving Ukraine has yet to materialize. Immediate impacts on financial markets appear limited. There is currently no indications of substantial changes in the crypto markets tied to the ongoing diplomacies. So far, nothing is impacting the crypto market space regarding Trump and Putin coming to have a sit down. So far, the crypto market hasn't been impacted, neither has the stock market, but all can change on the exact day. The negotiations have broader implications for geopolitical and economic alliances. The dialogues essentially potentially influence sanction strategies, yet they lack direct essentially repercussions on cryptocurrency markets, with no shifts reported in major altcoins as well. A lack of confirmed essentially summit limits immediate changes in crypto markets and dynamics. The absence of Ukraine participation keeps the focus on existing US-Russian diplomacy strategies. Long-term essentially impacts might essentially depend on future sanctions, though for now, essentially currently, cryptocurrency markets remain stable. So far, crypto is completely stable. Nothing's happened to so far, with Trump and Putin coming to the same table on Friday. All good for now. On the exact day, things can change. The crypto market could become volatile, so could the stock market. So we'd have to really see how it's going to go down once the sit down essentially happens. Now, what we're going to be talking about next is the DeFi structure. So moving on from that to the DeFi structures gain mainstream adoption with Centrifuge's leadership. Centrifuge's COO Jurgen declared DeFi's moment akin to ETF emergence as technology shifts towards mainstream adoption, highlighting Centrifuge's progress in tokenizing traditional financial assets. DeFi's integration into mainstream finance could shift asset management and paradigms, enhancing essential programmable transactions and liquidity across blockchain platforms. With Centrifuge leading these advancements, Centrifuge's chief operating officer Jurgen has associated decentralized finance growth with historical rise of ETFs. His association underscores DeFi's potential to become essentially mainstream within investment cycles. Bloomberg also highlights how Centrifuge is essentially building a robust on-chain ecosystem. Key collaborations with Junos Henders and the S&P 5, essentially, and the S&P Dow Jones indices drive this forward. Such partnerships demonstrates DeFi's expanding role, shifting essentially from fringe to institutional acceptance. DeFi is definitely growing on the sidelines, and eventually some parts of the DeFi space will become the other market space, for example, the black market space, where you could pretty much get anything you want. But it seems like the DeFi space is getting a push right now from even Centrifuge, big corporation, that matter, big partnerships, big names in the middle as well. The reasons why essentially even the S&P 500 is involved, essentially the Nasdaq is involved, and so on, is because tokenization is a very big aspect in essentially that matter. Now, moving on from that to Ripple. Before we talk about Ripple news, let's go inside the comment section first. Let's see where we're at inside the comment section. We were at here. Sounds like we're heading towards Stormy. Sounds like we're heading towards a North Korea kind of world. Miles, don't worry. You adopt all of us in the CMF. Adopt all of you inside the CMF. The CMF still meeting in Dubai, Miles. Sardinia, I would have to say. Billionaires Playground. That's amazing, Miles. Is the fund people are contributing to the same as your foundation? Can you discuss how to contribute to your fund, please? The foundation hasn't started yet, and no, it can be attached without a doubt. It can be attached together, but it's not attached together yet, and it hasn't started yet. But I need to reach a certain level where I can be able to set up a foundation where I'm able to comfortably, feed quite a lot of people. So I'm getting there, not there yet quite. Call me crazy, but I trust Russia more than Israel these days. I have already begun working on financial plans as XRP climbs, and it is going to climb. Let's go, Scott. Absolutely. So, Ripple news, XRP news, RLUSD news, Mesh. Mesh today has announced support for RLUSD. Ripple is essentially a stablecoin, adding it to more than 50 tokens already available on its platform. The company said users can now deposit, transfer, and pay with RLUSD, while merchants can accept it at checkouts. Launched back in 2024, RLUSD is backed by dollar deposits, US government bonds, and cash equivalent instruments. Ripple said the reserves are subject to monthly assertions by licensed CPA. RLUSD is issued by a New York limited purpose trust company. Mesh essentially said the addition of RLUSD to their payment system offers a fully backed one-to-one US dollar payment essentially option for both users and merchants to accept RLUSD. The company said this makes it suitable for stable, non-volatile payments and enables simple integrations for checkout transactions. Ripple has said RLUSD was developed for transparency and compliance in mind, reflecting essentially its experience in operating within regulated frameworks. The company noted that the stablecoin's issuance, structure, and oversight differentiates it from many other tokens essentially inside the market space. Ripple recently tapped BNY, the oldest essentially bank in the US, to hold the cash and the essentially treasury bills reserves, backing an RLUSD stablecoin, bringing a heavyweight essentially custodian into the mix as the token's tops essentially $500 million in circulation. The deal gives RLUSD a traditional safeguard for its reserves. BNY, which essentially administrates some $52 trillion in assets, will manage the liquidity and ensure that every RLUSD circulation is backed one-to-one with dollar-dominated essentially assets. The move adds another layer of trust for RLUSD, which Ripple essentially launched back in 2024. Ripple is also pursuing a national trust bank, essentially as we discussed. Now, with essentially what's going on with Mesh and other platforms, separately, crypto payment platforms like, for example, Transact have also integrated RLUSD across its global networks, making the token instantly essentially buyable in 64 countries using Apple Pay, Visa, transfer, wire transfer, and any other fiat payment methods. RLUSD to over 450 wallets, apps and exchanges, including MetaMask, Coinbase Wallet, and Uniswap. This is what they said. We worked closely with Ripple to bring RLUSD to our full-on ramp ecosystem, said Harsh, the head of marketing at Transact. This gives users more choice and better access to stablecoins built for real utility. Transact, BNY Mellon, and now Mesh, essentially all adding RLUSD to their ecosystems. XRP obviously involved as well, not the Mesh, the rest of them, yes. Day by day, Ripple is expanding their footprint essentially inside the digital world, either essentially through RLUSD or essentially through the XRP ledger or XRP in itself. Honestly, I've said it a million times, and I'll say it another million times if I have to. If you want to be saved in a digital world, you don't need to look too far. XRP is going to be the one to save you in a digital world. And this is not a way for me to be cocky in any sort of a way. I don't know how not to. I don't want to be cocky in any sort of a way. What I say happens. It's not because I have a crystal ball, or maybe I do, but what I say happens. I like to see it more as it's a wisdom that essentially I get from God and share it with people. And, well, in general, it's what I say happens. Look, the easiest way to put it is day by day, XRP Ledger expand our footprint. Day by day, we're getting closer to a CBDC world, to that digital prison world. XRP is going to be your savior token. I don't know how to explain it anymore to people who still haven't woken up, but it's going to save your life. People could agree with me, people could disagree with me. It's people's right to do so. At the end of the day, I know that I'm right. And again, I'm not being cocky at all in any sort of a way. It's just I've been right too many times. too many times. So you could say, I know what I'm talking about. And on that note, we have also reached the endings of tonight's live. Tonight, we discussed a mixture of topics from essentially what's keeping that momentum inside the crypto space, and that September could be the month that we get the second round of votings for the Clarity Act, which brings us clarity for the crypto space and institutions, and the CFTC and SEC know what they're doing. And September could also be the month that we get rate cuts. 10 out of 10, even better. We discussed a mixture of news on tonight's live, some vital news, and we answered a lot of questions, and a vital question that was asked on tonight's live as well. This was episode 354 of the CMF Live. Episode 355 will be tomorrow. The CMF stands for Crypto Miles Family. My name is Miles. You can tune to this live Monday to Friday, 10 p.m. London time onwards for the most recent news on cryptocurrency, CBDCs, AI, politics, regulations, and my very own perspective on that matter. We also do Q&As on this live as well, which means if you ever do have any questions, don't be shy, put it down in the comment section. I'm more than happy to help you out. I will be seeing everybody tomorrow, same timing as usual, for episode 355 of the CMF Live. Before obviously we do go, let's go inside the comment section first, as always. Let's see where we're at. We were at here. So what fund are people contributing to? A CMF fund. Sometimes I look at certain aspects. Stormy have to, yeah. It's a CMF fund. A CMF fund is for people that are going to be involved, that want to be a part of the CMF fund. That, we're going to start investing into different sectors and areas through a CMF fund, and people who invest into it are going to be a part of it, in other words. So that's the fund that people are, contributing towards inside the CMF right now. It could also, lead into a CMF foundation if everybody wants to inside, the CMF. That's a part of the CMF fund. If they want to, we can lead into a CMF foundation. If not, I'm already doing a foundation, on the sidelines anyways. But that's what people are contributing towards, a CMF fund, which that's going to be investing into real estate. It's going to be investing into blockchain projects and so on, to grow our fund collectively, in other words. Sometimes I look at, and it could be $5 donations or $10 donations, and it's completely optional. You don't have to donate at all if you don't want to. Sometimes I look at a certain aspects of, I'll say, Miles, I heard today that on the 20th of November, when IPO goes live, that Swift will be using XRP. Is this just BS? Yes, it's just BS. It will be interesting if it's true. It will be very interesting if it's true. Share the live. Let's go. Just XRP and XLM XDC as well. XRP, XLM, XDC as well. Yes, 100%. XRP will be your savior. XLM, XDC, cherry on top. Can save us. Let's go. Good night, Miles and CMF. Thank you for a great live and news. Let's go, JP. See you tomorrow. Same time as usual. Miles, you know what you're talking about. Let's go, Scott. Good night, Miles and CMF. See you tomorrow. Let's go. Orphan, see you tomorrow. Same time as usual. Good night, Miles. See you tomorrow. Orphan, see you tomorrow. I agree 100%, Stormy. Correction, both XLM and XRP are the savior tokens. Facts. Let's go, Thompson. Good night, Miles, and good night, my friend. Let's go, Scott. Great live, Miles. Powerful advice on preparing for incoming new beast system. We're all going to see rolled out. Thank you for touching on this tonight. XRP gives us hope. Let's go, Comatose. Great live, Miles and CMF. Let's go, Pablo. See you tomorrow, sometimes as usual. Congratulations on episode 354. Miles, thank you so much, Scott, for that. It's crazy, huh? Unbelievable. Good night, Miles and CMF. Thank you, Mike. See you tomorrow, sometimes as usual. Strongly enough, I have a vision of XLM. Let's go, Thompson. Bless you, Miles. Let's go, Comatose. Good night, Miles, and good night, CMF. Funky brother, see you tomorrow. Thanks, Miles. Stormy, see you tomorrow as well. Thanks for the news. Have a great night and get some rest, and see you tomorrow, same time. Let's go, Autistic. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Good night, all. Stormy, let's go. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Night, Miles. Thank you for another amazing show. Let's go. Joe, see you tomorrow. Thanks, Miles. Peg, see you tomorrow, same time as usual. Stormy, let's go. See you tomorrow. Thanks again for another great live stream today. Much appreciated. Let's go, Thompson. ICP is good or crap. ICP is not something you should be giving towards, my opinion. Can you discuss how to contribute to the fund? Will do. Sure, Susie. I'll send you the wallets if you want to. Why not? We'll do both, Miles. Let's go, Crypto Don. Thank you a bunch, Miles. Good night, all. Lena, let's go. See you tomorrow, sometime as usual. What a show tonight. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Good night, Miles and CMF. Carlos, let's go. See you tomorrow, sometime as usual. Good night to the best family online. Let's go, CMF founder. I love you guys. Let's go, Scott. Love you too, brother. Thanks, Miles, for your honesty and your valuable, kind words. Many thanks for your urge, commitments, brother. You always talk with passion and honesty. Good night, brother. Thank you, Carl, for the kind words. See you tomorrow, sometime as usual. Thanks for a great program, Miles. Good night, family. Let's go. Scott, see you tomorrow, sometime as usual. Any news on Ada? No news on Cardano so far, I'll be honest. Thanks, Miles. Night all. Great speech to wake up the sleeping. Unfortunately, most don't listen. Let's go, Shelly. Facts, I agree. Facts, Shelly, is what also Stormy said. Good night, Miles. Thanks for a great evening. As normal, let's go, Adi. See you tomorrow, sometime as usual. Share the live and comment. Let's go. Just think, I am a CMF OG. Let's go, Scott. I will see everybody tomorrow, same time as usual. Everybody have a great day or a good night, depending on where you're around the world. CMF members, thank you so much to all of you who have liked and retweeted this live. If you watch this on X, if you watch this on YouTube, thank you so much for liking as well. If you haven't, like and retweet this live, like on YouTube. Put a comment outside the live as well. Follow and subscribe if you already haven't. See everybody tomorrow, same time as usual. Everyone have a great day or a good night, depending on where you're around the world. This was a CMF live show. The disclaimer, as always, is not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. Everyone have a great day or a good night, depending on where you're around the world. Love you all. See you tomorrow for episode 355 at 10 p.m. London time onwards. See you tomorrow.